Imagine living in a world where you couldn't see the sunlight, hear your favorite music, or even say a single word. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I tell you someone lived this way and still became a global inspiration? Let me introduce you to a story that changed my perspective forever. Helen Keller's incredible journey. Now, let's step into Helen Keller's world. When Helen was just a baby, her parents were overjoyed to have a healthy little girl. But when she was about 19 months old, a severe illness changed everything. Helen lost both her sight and hearing. Imagine their heartbreak. Her parents didn't just lose her giggles and chatter. They lost their way of communicating with their child. As Helen grew older, things got even harder. She was frustrated and she often threw tantrums because she couldn't express herself. She would bump into furniture, fall or hurt herself without even realizing it. Her parents were desperate for a solution, but at that time, no one knew how to help someone like Helen. That's when Annie Sylvian, a young teacher, entered her life. At first, Helen didn't trust her. She pushed Annie away and refused to cooperate. But Annie was determined. She knew that behind Helen's anger and silence was a bright, curious mind. Annie started with small steps. One of the most famous moments was at a water park. Helen was feeling the cool stream of water on her hand when Annie spelled WATER into her palm. Suddenly it clicked. Helen realized that movements in her hand stood for the thing she was touching. It was like a light switched on her mind. But that was just the beginning. Annie took Helen outdoors to gardens, streams and even the woods. She taught Helen to feel the breeze and the warmth of the sun, smell flowers and touch leaves. Slowly, Helen started to connect words with the world around her. It was like learning a whole new language. But through touch, Annie didn't just teach Helen to communicate. She opened up the world to her. As if learning to read and write wasn't challenging enough, Helen wanted to speak too. Can you imagine how hard that must have been for someone who couldn't hear her own voice? But Helen's teacher Annie Sylvian believed in her. With the help of Sarah Fuller, a vocal teacher, Helen began to learn how to use her voice. She would place her fingers on people's lips and throat to feel how sounds were formed. It wasn't easy and her speech wasn't perfect. But she didn't give up. Eventually, Helen learned to articulate words, giving her a whole new way to connect with the world. Just think, she couldn't hear or see, yet she managed to speak, proving that determination can break any barrier. I first heard about Helen Keller from one of my favorite YouTube shows, Dr. Binox. You know, I don't get a lot of screen time. My parents let me watch videos for just about 30 to 40 minutes once every 2 weeks. So I always think, what can I watch that's fun but also teaches me something new? That's why I love Dr. Binox. It's learning without even realizing it. And when I watched the episode about Helen Keller, I couldn't stop thinking about her story. It made me imagine how life could be so different and yet so inspiring. When I heard about Helen Keller's story, I was amazed. It got me thinking, what if I played a blindfold game with my friend? I was blindfolded just for a few minutes. Trust me, I felt so restless, frustrated, bumping into things feelings, unsure of where I was finally. I was desperate to take it off. But Helen Keller lived her whole life in darkness and silence. She couldn't see the smile on her mother's face, colors of rainbows, or hears birds chirping, or the rustling of leaves, or even a gentle stream sound. Her world was both quiet and a dark place where most of us might feel completely lost. But Helen didn't let that stop her. Instead of giving up, she worked harder than most of us could ever imagine. She learned to feel the world around her, the warmth of the sun on her face, the texture of leaves in her hand, and the movement of water flowing through her fingers. These small sensations became her bridge to understanding life. And you know what? Helen didn't just survive. She excelled. She became the first deaf-blind person to graduate in college. Isn't that incredible? Helen Keller didn't stop with her education. She became an author and wrote several books, including her autobiography, The Story of My Life. This book isn't just a story. It's like walking alongside Helen as she transforms her struggles into incredible strengths. She writes about her challenges, her victories, and how she found joy in the simplest things. But Helen Keller's story doesn't stop with her personal achievements. She dedicated her life to helping others. Helen became a strong advocate for people with disabilities and fought for equal rights. She even co-founded the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, to protect people's freedoms. And did you know, Helen met some amazing people during her life. She was friends with Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, and Mark Twain, one of the greatest writers ever. Isn't that incredible? Helen's life shows us that no matter what challenges we face, we can still make a big difference in the world. Helen taught us that even in the face of darkness and silence, we can create a life filled with purpose, light, and connection. She showed us that what really matters is not what we lack, but what we do with what we have. One of my favorite parts is how she describes the world through touch and imagination. It's so inspiring. Her story shows that no obstacle is too big if we face it with courage and determination. If you enjoy reading stories that leave you feeling uplifted and motivated, the story of my life is a must-read. Helen Keller's life made me realize how blessed we are to see, hear, and speak. Her story teaches us to appreciate what we have and to make the most of it. What about you? Have you heard about Helen Keller before? What did her story teach you? Let me know in the comments. Here's a fun challenge for you. Blindfold yourself for 5 minutes and try to do something simple like finding a glass of water or writing your name. Then tell me how you felt. Could you imagine living that every single day and still achieving your dreams like Helen did? Helen Keller once said, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision." Her words remind us to dream big and never give up. I hope you like this video and feel as inspired by her story as I did. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments and share this video with your friends and inspire them too. Until my next video, stay curious and keep reading. Signing off, Page Pulse by Lee. See you next time.